All of us in our lives, at some stage or other, would have discontinued a project or a program or an endeavor which we ardently took into our life. And probably at a later stage in our life, we would have regretted that we should have continued with that project, in which case we would have probably attained great successes in our life. Also, the present generation of youngsters, as far as I think, suffer from a condition called mental frailty. Frailty, as a doctor says, is a frailty of the body. Sometimes when we see certain patients, we say this gentleman is frail because his body has no resistance to fight against the infections like viruses or bacteria which possibly can fight against him. The immunity is gone. That is when we call an individual as a frail person. Nowadays, the youngsters who are overprotected by the family, the parents, probably the educational systems, they end up in becoming mentally frail. When a situation comes against them or when they face some harsh realities in their life, they crumble. And they are unable to progress in their career as well as they should be. Like in our good old childhood days, we used to face all kinds of realities of life, the harsh realities, and probably shaped up to a situation where we could stand against any odds in our life. I would like to advise the generation of youngsters who are here that if you undertake any project in your life, don't give up on it, because most of the big things in the world or successful things in the world has happened from a beginning where the individual or a system had no hope at all. I just want to share a small incident which happened in my life. Actually, I wanted to share many incidences, but I thought I will focus on one particular incident which is related to my passport. Most of us will have a passport. Now, this passport I got in 1984. That was after a long struggle of nearly 3.5 years. Now we know that we can get a passport within 2 weeks' time. Everything is online. Those were the times when we had no computers, no mobile, not even proper telephones. So we had to apply for a passport, and that takes almost 3 or 4 pages of application forms to be filled up. Of course, an agent may help you, and slowly bring this application to the passport office. And the application goes to the bottom, where there will be a pile of applications there. And a year later, a group of police officers come to our house, and they inquire about this particular applicant, whether he has got the credential to get the passport. Probably 1 or 2 referees you would have put to know or to make them know about a good standing. So the officers go to the referees, to the neighborhood, and probably to the nearby police station to verify that there is no case filed against you. So that is probably a year or a year and a half. Then they process a passport, and probably after another year later, you will get an intimation that the passport is ready when you go and collect it. So ultimately, I got the passport in 1984. So my brother was actually doing his postgraduate studies in Republic of Ireland in a place called Dublin. And my father actually wanted to make me a surgeon. So he told my elder brother, who also is a doctor, that try to get your brother an admission to the Royal College of Surgeons in Dublin. And he has done all the groundwork and got an admission for me to attend a course which will make me eligible to appear for the Part 1 of the FRCS examination. My brother came back. That was in December of 1985. and we had a plan made. And he said, brother, you come to Ernakulam. I will wait in such and such travel agent office, and you bring all your documents, including your passport, and we will sit there and book the ticket and take it from there. At that time, I was doing house surgery at Medical College, Kochi. And that day, early morning, I woke up, fresh, an ambitious young man, going to go abroad. The beginning is to buy a ticket. I took my passport, put it in a file with some other additional papers. At that time, I had a small motorbike, a Java bike, where I had a small purse on top of the petrol tank, where I put my file with passport and papers, and slowly went to the railway station at Kochi. And early morning, the parking slots were all empty, so I comfortably parked my bike there, took the file from the purse of the bike, and slowly walked towards the railway station, bought a ticket to Kochi, and as all of us do, walked down the steps to the platform and had a cup of tea from one of those kiosks there, looked around the magazines. The train came. So I got into the train with my file and was traveling in the train. By walking from one compartment to another, I happened to meet one of my friends who at that time and even now is a politician. So we're talking about the local politics, the student politics, and various social problems. And when we reached a station called Paravam Road, suddenly this friend asked me, Doctor, where are you going to? Then I said, look, I am going to Dublin. I am going to do my postgraduate course there, hopefully. And my brother is now waiting at Kochi, and I have to be with him and to buy the ticket. So I brought my passport and my papers and everything with me, and I lifted up my file, and suddenly I felt that file felt much lighter to me than I remember in the morning. I suddenly opened the file, and shockingly, I could not see my passport inside the file. The passport is missing. The shock of my life. I didn't know what to tell him. I didn't know what to do. I stood up suddenly with my file, looked all around whether the passport has fallen down, nothing there. I couldn't tell anybody that I lost my passport. Our passport is not with me. Slowly, I told my friend that I'll come now and slowly walked towards the door of the train, not knowing what to do. The train slowly started moving towards Kochi. And as the train was moving, I slowly jumped out from the train to the platform. And I stood there like a statue, watching each and every compartment of the train moving by, at last the last one. I didn't know what to do. I just walked towards the station master and out through the door to the outside of the railway station, where there was a bus standing there, and the conductor was announcing Medical College Kochi, Medical College Kochi. Not knowing what to do, and feeling that there is nothing going to happen if I stay back there, I jumped into that bus. And about 45 minutes later, I came back to my medical college, and I was standing in front of the bus station there. And my friends walked past, and some of them asked me, Jose, you said you were going to Kochi to see your friend today morning. Why are you standing here? I had to tell some silly excuses. And I was standing there. I thought I will just go back to the hostel, lie down, and relax, and forget about my future. Forget about going to do my postgraduate degree abroad, because my passport is missing. As I said earlier, it takes you about 3 years or even more than that to get a passport at that time. And to get another passport is impossible. It will probably take a lifetime for you to get that at that time. Suddenly another bus came, Kottayam. I jumped into that bus. I thought I'll go back to the railway station and get my bike back. That time there was no mobile to call my brother to tell that I'm stuck here or I've lost my passport or something like that. So I just simply went to the railway station, and I saw a whole lot of bikes parked there. When I was There in the morning, there was only a couple of them, but the hundreds of motorbikes, cars, everything parked there. I could barely see my bike there. I went around, looked all around. Even when I said I can't see my bike, just leave alone. If in case I have lost my passport somewhere there, I couldn't find my passport. I was really devastated. Walked again to the ticket place where I asked the ticket guy, have you got a book, a passport, which I lost? He did not even answer to me. He looked at me with a blank face. Walked down the steps, went to the shop from where I bought my cup of tea. And I asked that guy, have you by any chance got or somebody has given you a passport which I lost? He said, no, how can you get a passport if you are lost? I just came back to the bike. All my dreams shattered, crumbled, and didn't know what to do. I pulled the bike back and decided I will go back to the hostel and looked around a little bit. I saw people around me were so happy. The taxi drivers sitting there on the taxi reading newspapers. And suddenly I noticed a driver was sleeping, dozing on his steering with a newspaper. I thought I will ask this gentleman in case. I'm not going to lose anything by asking a guy whether he got my passport or not. I went there. Actually, he was sleeping. I tapped on his shoulder, asked him, I have lost a passport in the morning. Have you got one? He suddenly woke up from sleep and looked at me with a harsh face and told, how can you imagine that you are going to get a passport if you have lost it in the public place? I was so shattered. And he continued to read the newspaper as if it is none of his concern that I lost my passport. I stood beside him. After a few minutes, I asked him again, is it possible that somebody would have got a passport? He said, look, doctor, if you lose a passport and somebody get a passport, now it's very easy to forge the passport. You get 25,000 or 50,000 for a passport. At that time, it may be equal to 5 or 10 lakhs now. It's not computerized. You just peel the photograph and put somebody else's photograph, and that becomes his passport. And his name will be Jose Chacko. There was no way to identify the guy who carries a passport is the owner of the passport or not. People used to steal passport at that time, which was one of the most valuable things which you can sell in the market. So I became more and more disappointed. I didn't know what to do. I had no way to contact my brother either. And I was so shameful to tell somebody that I lost my passport as well. Came back again to the bike. And while I was walking back to the bike, I heard somebody talking in a very loud voice. Another taxi driver was asking this gentleman, what's the problem? And he is a doctor, and he seems to have lost the passport here in this car parking place. And he also said, how can you get a passport which you lose in a public place? Leave alone, if you put it in the pocket, somebody will pickpocket it and take it away. And after a moment of pause, he told me, Mr. George seems to have got a book in the mornings from somewhere, but he told me he got a ration card or something. Those times the ration card almost looked like passport, but with a different color. Then I suddenly put the bag back and went back again to him and asked, where is Mr. George? And he looked around, oh, Mr. George. Mr. George is gone to Kovalam. He is gone with a couple of guests from England, a white family. And he said he will come back only in 2 weeks' time. Those time people used to hire taxi for weeks and weeks because you don't get many of them around. Oh, I didn't know. He didn't know whether it was a passport or is a ration card or something else. And if I told he was carrying my passport, he would come back only in 2 weeks' time. By the time my travels is gone, my course was supposed to start on the 4th of January. So my dreams again has fallen apart. And they were just continuing with their work as I walked back into the bike and stood there. And suddenly I noticed that a car was gushing down from the police parade ground up there towards the railway station, down the hill, very fast, and suddenly came to the taxi parking state, and the driver opened the door and and was running towards another car. And I looked into the car and I found a white couple sitting in the back seat. So suddenly I moved to the other guy and said, "Is it Mr. George?" And he said, "Oh, it's Mr. George. Why can't you go and ask him?" So I saw Mr. George carrying a can from another car and putting it in his boot and got into the driver's seat and sitting there. And I asked, "George, I'm a doctor. I lost my passport in the morning where I parked my bike. And your friend said that you got a book. Does it happen to be my passport?" He looked at me with anger, contempt, and everything, as if he has not seen the passport. And he leaned to the left side, opened the glove box, and gave me a book. And that was my passport. I couldn't thank him. Even before I thanked him, the car drove away. I slowly walked down to the station, bought another ticket, and I saw a train slowly moving to Ernakulam, and I jumped into the train and continued with my work. Look, so many places I could have gone wrong in this particular event. Thinking that I have lost everything in my life, I probably could have gone and slept in the hostel. I could have cried. I could have told my brother that I lost passport, I'm not going to Dublin. I could have not asked the taxi driver. I could have just left with the bike rather than waiting there for some time. And this gentleman came back to take a can of 5 liters because that is his reserve petrol tin. That time there was one petrol station in Kottayam, then next is Kottarakara, and next is Trivandrum. So we all used to carry tins of reserve diesel, which he forgot. Yesterday somebody else borrowed it from him. So after a few minutes of his travel, he remembered that his reserve can is not with him. So he has come back to collect this reserve can when I happened to meet him and get my passport back. So many small things click in our life. Only thing is that we have to tap what we are supposed to tap and walk in the right direction. Suppose if I would not have got that passport at that time, probably I would not have been standing in front of you. I would not have been talking to you. Probably I would not have done the first heart transplant in India. I would have been probably practicing as a family doctor in a remote village somewhere in Kerala or somewhere in India. So this is a great message I wanted to give to the people. Don't give up. Plod on and plod on in our life, because we don't really know what our hopelessness will bring in our life if you make it fruitful. Thank you.